My name is Kevin Neal, and I work in category management for direct mail, for tailored print, and visual impressions. Raised on a little mini farm in southern Illinois, corn, soybeans, pigs, cattle, the whole 9 yards. Grew up in a very small community, spent a lot of time with family, my grandparents. I feel like I was raised more by my grandparents than my parents at times as they were busy and working. Core values were set by my grandparents. I think that kind of relates into how my work ethic and how I operate on a day-to-day basis. Oh, it's definitely community. And community can be good or bad, especially when it's coming from a small town. People that you can rely on, almost everybody knows everybody, which can be a bad thing at times too, right? Everybody kind of gets in everybody's business. I went from the time that I was in second grade through high school with the same people. So you got to know them and their families. You got invested in them, and you felt like that you could trust them, you could rely on them, and they would be there to be supportive. The bad of a small town is it was definitely a farming community and coal mines. So, opportunities were somewhat limited for employment across a lot of the families. Watching the struggle there from that small town at times was a little bit difficult, and I think that's one of the things that made me really want to go out into the world and see what else was out there and how I could potentially become successful and be a little bit more than the small town boy. My parents were divorced when I was very young. So I did spend some time back and forth between my parents. I don't want to say that I wasn't close with them. I just had a better bond with my grandmother than I did my mother or my father. My dad worked away, so if I was with my father, he worked highline construction. So he would leave on Sunday nights or Monday mornings and wouldn't get home until Friday. He would leave with the trailer hitched up to the back of his work truck and go to wherever they were building high lines and stay there for the week and then come home. So we would have a live-in person that would come in. I don't want to say nanny because it wasn't a nanny back then, but somebody he would hire to come in and stay with us through the week while he was away. And then my mother, when my parents were divorced, she moved to Texas, so she wasn't in the picture a whole lot at that point. So I did kind of spend a lot of time by myself, and that's where I think I really grew towards my grandmother because she was always there, no matter what. She was always in her little house in town on the corner, no matter what I needed. Both of my grandfathers, one was a farmer, one was a coal miner. They both died fairly young. And then it was my grandmothers that really raised me, and one more in particular than the other on my mother's side. And the core values there just came from, she was a hard worker. She, worked in a restaurant pretty much her whole life as a waitress, as a cook. She had a little house that she was very proud of. She didn't need a whole lot. She instilled that for sure, that, sometimes less is definitely more. When I was in high school, I worked at McDonald's as a crew member there, and then worked up into management. I never went to work without an ironed uniform. She would always iron my uniform for me before I went. I would leave school, go to her house, change clothes, go to work, and it was always there on a hanger waiting for me. Just that work ethic of always being prepared, always looking good, making sure that you represent yourself well was definitely instilled by her. Family to me is people who care about you and people that you care about. And family isn't necessarily a blood relation. Family can be friends. They can be a lot of different things. My father was the youngest of five, and I was the youngest of anybody within our family. Okay, so when I was a kid, when I was 9, 10 years old, I had cousins that were in high school, going to college, and so forth. So I wasn't exceptionally close with my family from that standpoint, just because of the age difference, the age gap that was there. I do definitely remember one time that my dad threw a pig roast. And actually, most all the family definitely did come. My father dug the hole, got the coals going, threw the pig in, buried it up, let it cook. Everybody, chipped in with food and so forth. And it just still resonates with me. I remember being with my family, sitting in the yard, having a good time. And it just was something that didn't happen enough, unfortunately. So I think that's one of the things that I definitely truthfully remember. What kept me busy was work. I was the person that would pick up every single shift that I could, even if it was a 2-hour shift, whatever it might be. Once I started to, make my own money, it definitely gave me a little bit more freedom, and that was something that I truthfully enjoyed. So I would work any time, any night, any day, any weekend. It didn't matter. I would definitely do that. I'd have a part-time job working the cash register at a pool hall just off of the main square there in our little small town. It was kind of a hangout for the kids, on the after-school hours and weekends and so forth. And I think that was a really good time too. I kind of liked that interaction with my peers at a little bit of a different level. And getting to see people at that point in time. And it gave me a sense of responsibility. The owner trusted me and would leave when I was there, even though I was 16, 17 years old and I'm in charge of his business at that point. That was something that I think was pretty cool too. Keeping my gas tank full so I could go run the roads and do what I wanted to do. That was number one. Every paycheck was the first stop was the gas station and filled up the car with gas. Secondly, my hobby was baseball cards. So that's actually something that my father and I did bond over a little bit. So he would, as he traveled for his job, he would come home and every once in a while there'd be a surprise. There'd be a box of baseball cards for me when I would get home from school. And I would open them up and talk about the cards that I got and look up how much they were worth in the Beckett magazine and so on. And I still have some of those cards to this day too. It's funny to me now how I think about that working for a printing company, right? The registration of front to back. You're talking about how if it's off just a little bit, right? It's not perfect. The registration isn't perfect on the card. It is not equal distance around all four sides of the card. That takes it from a 10 to being potentially a 9. And I've actually thought about that when I've been on the production floor looking at print work of, comparing that to the grading of a card. So it's kind of funny how something I started, when I was a younger kid now still resonates with me with the work that we do here at Taylor. Over the years, I've got out of the hobby of the cards and gotten more into, now I want to sound like a little kid, but more into Legos and the Lego kits and building my own Legos, structures and so forth as well too. So I stayed working at McDonald's even out of after high school a little bit. I grew from being a team, just a basic team member, cruise shift type of person, to being a first assistant manager at the stores that we worked for. I saw myself just really start to enjoy the leadership, working with people and talking to people and helping people out. And unfortunately, I worked for McCopco, McDonald's Corporation. And then the stores, they sold out like 6 or 7 stores to a franchise owner. The experience wasn't quite the same there at that point in time. And that's really what made me leave there, because I thought for a long time that my career might be growing through McDonald's Corporation, because there's a lot of opportunity there. You stick there long enough, you can become a franchise owner and have a good life and a good career that way. Unfortunately, that sale of those stores really shifted me to outside of the McDonald's Corporation. I worked for a real estate company doing computer support, and the owner of the company asked me to kind of help him out a little bit and run the mailroom. So we were a large real estate company with 7 offices up and down the coast of Southwest Florida. And back then, this was before a lot of internet and computers and so forth, so websites, etc. So we did a lot of mailings of magazines and catalogs that we would print and mail out. And I did a lot of the procurement for all the supplies, our printed supplies. And then in the mailroom, when the Anybody who knows mail, this is going to date me right here. But when the first IMB barcode came out of use more than, a very long time ago, we adopted that in for postage savings. And from there, I just kind of got into mail, and I really liked to do mail. Worked for that company for a long time. And then from there, I transitioned over into a small boutique company in Southwest Florida for doing direct mail. Got into doing data programming, variable data programming, I think at its true infancy at that point, a lot of personalization. And then just kind of continued to grow my career from there. I got an opportunity in Atlanta to work for another direct mail company, a kind of a smaller boutique company. We worked a lot in healthcare. Before HIPAA and high trust, everything there. We did a lot of continuing education work for Emory Healthcare and Northside Hospital, so forth, big medical groups. Worked there for about 7 years, and then I got an opportunity to go to work for Curtis 1000, which was a Taylor Taylor company, and been here 17 years now. And it doesn't seem like 17 years. Time has really flown here. My love of direct mail really comes from when I became a variable data programmer. The personalization, working with the technology that was in its infancy at that point in time, and being able to create something, how it was printed, or how it was delivered to the Postal Service, working with the Postal Service, which I do quite a bit, and then, being able to track mail, see it being able to get delivered, seeing the results of the campaigns, the ROIs. I just like that physical creation of that mail piece. And one of the things I do here at Taylor as well, and this is another reason I love direct mail as much as I do, is, in 2020, during COVID, Glenn Taylor invested in millions of dollars worth of equipment for the Byron, Minnesota facility to stand up mail-in ballots. I was one of those 4 team members that was volunteered to make that happen. And I spent 3 weeks working in the Byron, came from Atlanta, spent 3 weeks working in that facility to stand up a completely new product line for Taylor that still exists today. But what I really appreciated about that was Glenn's investment into the country, into America. People needed to be able to vote, and we needed to be able to help them vote. And we had the equipment, we procured the equipment, we had the know-how, we had the people, we had the desire to make it happen. And we did. In this instance with the mail-in ballots, it allowed people to stay safe and to vote at that point in time. I love getting mail. Okay, that's the geeky side of me. My wife now knows more about mail, direct mail, than she ever would want to know in her life. She can now look at a piece of mail and read the indicia and know if it's a solicitation or if it is something that was mailed first class, and if it was something that might actually be important. But I like that aspect of mail. I started in the Atlanta, Georgia facility and was hired on to become the team lead for the direct mail data processing department. So that was a department that was responsible for doing all the data processing, postal standardization, and hygiene for direct mail, along with all the hyper-personalization and so forth of the mail piece itself, and then sending out the print files to the presses to be printed. I started there, worked there for about 10 years, leading that team, building that team. At that point in time, I was getting a little skittish. I don't want to say skittish. I was getting a little antsy. I wanted to do something else. So I talked to my leadership at the time and decided that we would transition me into a different role, which was as a technical solutions consultant for direct mail. So an SME working with enterprise sales and our enterprise clients to develop solutions for their direct mail needs. I did that for approximately 4 years. And then I had the opportunity to become a director of business application development for our direct mail technologies and took 3 different teams underneath me. One of them being the team that I had given up several years prior or earlier, and just to try to remove redundancies and get those teams aligned. So I did that for about 2 years approximately, and then I asked to come back to operations. I did not have a heavy IT background. I thought I had made a lot of good changes there, but wasn't sure how much farther I could take it with the skill sets that I had. So I talked to my leadership once again, which has always been very supportive, and asked to come back over to operations, which they thought was a good idea at the time because we were just forming the category management model within Taylor, TPVI, and felt that I would be a great asset on the direct mail category management team. Taylor really feels like a family. Curtis 1000 felt like a family to me. We are a very large corporation, there's no doubt, but I can go from facility to facility. I know people smile, people say hi, they ask about travel or things of that nature, they stay engaged. It just doesn't feel like a very large corporation from that standpoint. I think that the Curtis family did a good job instilling that within the Curtis 1000 brand. And of course, it's the same with Glenn and what he's done here at Taylor. So I think it was a natural fit for Curtis 1000 and Taylor, at that time. So I've never felt like I didn't have a career growth here. So somewhere to go. I feel like Taylor's always invested in me. My leadership has always invested in me, and they continue to do that. A lot of what's made me today is my wife. She is a very successful business person on her own, but has also been very supportive of me in the background. When I've questioned myself, she's always the one that's behind me to say, man, you need to think about that. Doesn't tell me what to do or how to do it, but definitely gives me that feeling of that I can do it, that I'm supported. So from that standpoint, my wife is probably, next to my grandmother, is the one who's really shaped me, I would have to say, the most. She is not a judgmental person. She is definitely there to be helpful, to be supportive, whether it's in business and personal life, or I am a little bit of special needs as well, and people may not be able to see I'm in a wheelchair here. And so she's very understanding and very helpful from that standpoint as well too. When we first met, she was a reservationist at a real estate company. And when we moved to Atlanta, she got into recruiting. And she worked for a smaller boutique firm recruiting maintenance repairmen for apartment complexes and so forth. Then from there, she was able to be recognized and went to work for a company in Atlanta called the Lucas Group, which was a very similar company to Taylor. It was started by one individual. It was individually owned for almost 50 years before it being sold to private investment. And she grew her career from there to making honestly amazing amounts of money and recognition within her industry, and then eventually finished her career out at the largest global recruiting company in the world. Watching her grow her career and the confidence that she had instilled a lot of confidence in myself. Taking a road trip and taking our dog along with us. We do not have any children, but we've always had dogs. And currently right now we have a 3-year-old boxer, Chloe, who is our child, a very spoiled dog. But she likes to go everywhere with us. She loves to go, and we love to get in the car and go somewhere, see something different, and take her along with us. I do enjoy a good steak. And living in Atlanta, we have a lot of great restaurants that we can choose from. So we definitely enjoy doing that as well. But our major hobby or thing that we really like to do is being on a plane, going somewhere we've never been before. We were in Europe for just about 3 weeks. We flew to Rome and we spent a week in Rome, and it was one of our first exposures of really being outside the country for any length of time. And it was just, the experience was just unbelievable. It was kind of like you couldn't believe that you were there. We didn't have huge agendas. We took time, spent time, talked, sat, ate, enjoyed ourselves. And then we had the luxury of getting on a cruise ship for a couple weeks as well after that, and cruising the Mediterranean and going to different countries and seeing different things as well too. That was probably our favorite trip, and it was just because it wasn't scripted, and it was seeing different countries, different cultures, and really being feeling blessed to being able to do that. I was born with spina bifida. Okay, so I've had the handicap from day one. So I spent the first almost 16 to 18 years going. I lived in Southern Illinois, as we talked about earlier, and going to this children's hospital in St. Louis, where they actually, maybe one of the reasons I'm comfortable on camera is because they started filming me when I was a young child there, and they did case studies on me for education for other doctors. I had a very slight case of spina bifida that's allowed me to still be mobile and do things in my life that unfortunately a lot of people with the same condition aren't able to do. So I was able to walk for periods of time and through high school and so forth, but then eventually things have deteriorated a little bit and things have caught up with me, and I've been in the chair now for probably 20 years or so. People don't have an understanding, right, until they go through it themselves. And I've had friends and even my wife who at times have had to have a surgery or had an injury and so forth, and they have to end up living my life for a few weeks at a time or a month at a time. And they have a different opinion of things and a higher level of respect afterwards. People don't truthfully understand the struggles that are out there. I would say within America, the ADA accessibility is very good. Europe is pretty good, but not quite as well. Okay, Taylor's facilities are very handicap accessible, which I've always appreciated as well too. So, I think it's made me a better leader, and the reason I say that is because I understand what people may be going through and the struggles that they're going through. I have that empathy. I have that understanding. It may not be a physical disability. It may be just a challenge at work. It may be something, a physical challenge or a mental challenge in a personal life, something outside of the organization or the day-to-day work. And it could be, like I say, something that is just struggling and stressful day to day. What I've had to go through is really allowed me to approach those situations with empathy, patience, understanding, and support. I just have never looked at myself different than any other person. Okay, I've always believed that I can do it, and if I couldn't, I would try again. And if I still couldn't do it, then maybe I had to accept that. It just is part of my life. I have to accept it. I try to be a very upbeat person. Try to smile, engage with others, help lift them up, and I just don't think about it on a day-to-day basis. So I'm gonna have to stay busy. I'm not a person who likes to sit around. So volunteering is something that's very important to me. I don't have the opportunity to do it as much as I would like to now, but when I do have the opportunity to retire, that is one of the first things that I am going to look forward to, is finding somewhere that I can volunteer in almost any capacity, but if it's in a capacity where I could mentor, coach, that would be something that would be desirable. Or, we are huge dog people and dog lovers, and have been very active in the Atlanta Boxer Rescue Group in the metro Atlanta area, where that's go pick up a dog and move a dog from one foster to another foster. That would be something for sure to do. But then, travel for sure. Definitely some travel, probably a little more domestic, not so international. But definitely travel with my wife, spending time with my wife. Love nothing better than to sit on a dock, listen to a loon, and enjoy a beverage. Be vocal. Ask for opportunities. Engage with your leadership. Ask for mentorship. Ask for coaching. Don't be shy. What I've found here at Taylor over 17 years is that this company is built with people that are willing to help. Definitely, ask, right? Because as a leader walks the floor or engages, they may or may not recognize you. So put yourself out there. Go up, talk to them, and ask. If you don't ask, you don't know what the answer is going to be.